Well, welcome everyone to Historic Point Basse and our public access monthly program. This is, you should probably know Tom Bramer. And,
Good morning.
And this is Larry Knutson.
Good morning.
And my name is Don Matthews. And today we're just going to kind of review things about some of our past programs and update you on some of our upcoming programs. Maybe talk about some of the things that worked and also try to get you involved in probably thinking about giving some feedback and maybe some ideas about things that we could do out here, and also update you on just what our site really does and what we do to educate ourselves also. So I guess first of all, we'll start with the Spirit Walk. We had really great weather. We probably had some of the best weather we've ever had for that, and of course that made that we had probably our best year, except probably from the first 2 years were really well attended too, right?
Yeah.
It was a new program. Anything new usually really draws people a lot, but it has been a program that has been really increasing, one of our more popular programs every year. In fact, some of our problems come when we have so many people. I know there was a few people that left this year because we have groups of like 15 people, and they go out every 15 minutes. Is that true? 15?
10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes. But if you start with like 50 people, and if you have children, which we really love to have children here to experience, and they seem to get so much out of it, but they get impatient, and we understand, and so we apologize if you had to come and we couldn't get to you right away, but it is kind of a limited participation thing, so sometimes it just doesn't work out if everyone comes all at once. So. Do you have any input on Tom?
I thought it worked out really well. It's one of the things that I enjoy, I think, as much as anything. It's some work, but not as much as some of our other stuff. Physically, we don't have to spend quite as much time getting ready, but you get to interact with the people in a different way than we do when we're here, each of us in our job that we have here. We get to be somebody else, and I've already planned next year. I got it all figured out already, and I'm not telling anybody what it is.
It seems that the people that portray the spirits really, it's like Tom says, it's different than what we normally do out here. It lets us think about our own creativity a little more, and create something that we like to do. Larry?
Well, I think this year we had 8 spirits, and all well received. And our spirits, it's a little bit of comedy, it's a little bit of history, totally entertaining, I think, And I think everybody that come out this year really enjoyed it. We have such a turnover from people come year after year after year to that, and then we always hope they bring new friends with them.
And the programs change every year.
Yes.
We don't do the same, let's call it a skit or whatever you want to call it, same presentation. Maybe every 3rd or 4th year you might bring one that's really popular back, but most of them are brand new, or it's been a long time since we've done them.
Yeah.
And we do have, as Don said, one of the blockades that we have is people come, and then we have trail guides, lantern lit guides that take you around while we leave every so often. But in the interim, we do have a bonfire for you to sit at, have some good warm cider for you to have, and then we typically have somebody there telling some tales or reading some stories. So we still try and entertain you while you are waiting, So.
And we're always trying to improve, and next year we think we might have popcorn and possibly even some kettle corn. At our last, and that kind of if we're kind of done with Spirit Walk, we could kind of talk about one of the things we did. It was about a week and a half ago. We went to our fall history conference. We belong to an organization called Basse. It's Midwest Open Air Museum Coordinating Council, and it includes most of the Midwest states. Ohio, right? From Ohio.
Ohio to through Minnesota, in Iowa, yeah.
Indiana, Illinois, and Minnesota, although Minnesota doesn't seem to get involved too much. But it's really great for us. We have a fall conference and a spring conference, and we get together and share ideas from other open-air museums. And you might know some of them, like Old World, Wisconsin, and Heritage Hill, all belong to these things, and just about any
Living History in Iowa.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them in Ohio and Indiana.
There's a lot of them in Ohio.
Around Fort Wayne and that, a lot of them in there.
Yes. So we share things, and one of the things we learned, they were making this kettle corn. So we have a really good recipe for kettle corn at the Oliver. The Klein,
Oliver Kelly? Over in
the
Minnesota?
Klein farm. Can't remember his first name, but anyway, that was down by Carroll Stream, Illinois, and I think we had a conference in Schaumburg at the Volcrum farm about 3 years ago, and it was really intriguing for me. If you're we're all familiar with Chicago, but I don't think we're really familiar with how many parks and how many large parks that is around the Chicago area. Like the Klein farm is on a 1,200 acre reserve, and it's 100 and there was a little bit of confusion because I thought one thing said it was 160 acre farm. And another, and I think when he was talking to me, I think he said it was like 200. But it's an actual working farm from the 1890s, and they use horses, and it's in Carroll Stream, Illinois. And Volcrum Farms, another working farm, even in an earlier age, that's in Schaumburg, Illinois. And they have, and I learned also at the Volcrum conference that in Cook County, it has one of the largest sections of preserved American prairie in the world, in Cook County, and it was just so surprising. So we learned so many things from this, and one of the things we learned also was possibly to have another program around the Spirit Walk time, and it would be based around the legend of Sleepy Hollow and Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman, and we would basically designate different buildings on our site as buildings in sites and scenes in the story, and you'd go and the story would continue from building to building and things like that. So we're thinking about possibly doing that, and also there was talk about doing a summer school project. The Klein farm does I believe it's a 3-month program, isn't it, Jim? 3 month? 3 days? Okay, it's a 3-day program, and it's like a summer camp. And you go there and you clean the house, you cook, you learn all the different things of the 1890s, and you do go home at night. But it's a full day for 3 days. And
kind of a day camp sort of a thing.
It's a day camp, exactly. And we're thinking about doing that. The only thing that kind of hampers us a little bit is we do. I don't know if you know this that much, but like this year we had over 1,000 students come through in our school programs. But this would be another way to serve the children during the summer. Most of our all of our school programs are either in the spring, in April and and May, and then in the fall, in September and October, mostly in October. We'd like to have them a little more in September, and I think some of the teachers are thinking about bringing them a little earlier because it got a little chilly this year in places. But anyway, that comes to another area. Some of the things that are hampering increasing the programming out here is volunteers. So we would really encourage you to just come and visit us and talk about some of the opportunities, and maybe something might tweak your interest. And also we could share, I mean, because anyone can go to the history conferences. So if you're really interested in history, you could come to the, you know, we could enlighten you on what goes on in these history conferences, and possibly go along on that. So do you have anything to add on that?
I think people come out and look, and one of the volunteers that was here years ago says, you know, the best part about working here, volunteering here, is that everybody comes to visit wants to be us.
Oh, yeah.
That we have a lot of fun doing our presentations, our characters. We kind of, each of us get into the guy that we're supposed to be, or lady, there's a bunch of them too. But sometimes I think that's a little intimidating for people to, I'm not going to do that. Well,
yeah.
We didn't start doing it all in one day either.
Right.
It's a learning process, and after a while you get like, oh, I can do that, and life gets to be good.
But one thing that sets us apart from a lot of other historic sites is we are 100% volunteers. We do not have any paid staff or anything like that. So it does limit what we can do to some extent. But if people do volunteer, we don't expect everybody to volunteer for 24/7 duty.
Right.
If you have a particular interest and you want to come to one event and do a presentation on knitting, logging, whatever your particular interest in, we appreciate anybody that is willing to come out and give us a nice presentation.
Yes, and it is a fact that probably 75% of our volunteers come for one event a year, and that's what really makes the thing go. So don't feel that if you want to volunteer, you're going to get caught into doing, you know, all year, because we probably have a core of maybe 20 people that are out here a lot. Otherwise, it's mostly one person. We have over 100 members, and like I say, only 20 of them probably or less are out for just about every event.
Yeah.
Yes. I lost my train of thought. I apologize. I know I was going to. Oh, sorry. Maybe you have something to say. I apologize. I just really was thinking about things, and then
I think the best thing is come to an event. Now we're going to do our Heritage Holiday. Okay, come on out, look around, and if you have some interest, look at it from your perspective as well. Now, wonder what that one's doing. Okay, now, you know, think about where could I fit in?
Yes. If
you want to, and then do it in increments. I mean, you don't have to jump in.
Right, and that reminds me of what I was thinking about sharing is I started volunteering here in 2010 after I retired, and my first few events, I just came and watched and looked around. And then what I really started volunteering first of all was in the Monday work group, because as a carpenter, that was my career. Just helping work on the buildings was an obvious thing for volunteering. But then I started going to the festivals, and I started liking that. And I was kind of resistant to doing this presentation, even though I had some experience in acting. I was still a little bit, so don't feel bad. There's a lot of people that are hesitant, but once you go there a few times and get comfortable with things, and we do have some really good interpreters out here, because we have had compliments from other people saying that they like our way of doing things. And I think getting back to Larry's point of us all being volunteers, we have a little bit different perspective, because When we go to Basse, we are probably one of the only sites that are all volunteer. There's a lot of them that are state and federal and county funded, and they have degrees in history and preservation and things like that. So we're rubbing shoulders with some PhDs even and things like that in history. So we get a lot of input from that, but I think our perspective is a little different. We may not be quite as accurate as other sites, and we have had a lot of discussion about that in our own group, but I think we introduce people to history in a different way, in a specific way that helps people to understand it more of a personal experience.
Yeah, we're history enthusiasts,
Exactly.
not historians.
Exactly.
And we try to be
Good point.
as
Good point.
accurate as we possibly can. And if we make a mistake, well, then we correct it.
Yes.
We can't do that. Well, we were just talking the other day about stuff to do at our upcoming event, and I found an old rosette iron.
Mm-hmm.
So I let the folks know that it was there, and if they wanted to use it, but they weren't used until about 1900. So that's before or after our time. So we can't do that. You know, we thought, gee, wouldn't that be cool to do rosettes in the house, and then, you know, you've got something that you made, they watch you make, and then you give it to them as a treat.
Yes.
Well, we got to find a different treat because that one came along too late.
We normally have donuts, and we make these, I don't know if you...
Obelskivers.
You'd make
Yeah.
Obelskivers? Yes. If you can't tell, Larry's a Norwegian, so,
Yeah.
so he likes that. And Larry does a great job of being a Norwegian hunter here, and he has all kinds of neat things. It's really quite an experience. He does a really great job with that, and along with Tom being the trapper in the cabin. It's just really a neat experience. If anyone's new to this program, I know we have quite a few people that watch it every month, but if you're new to the program, it really is a worthwhile site. I feel quite proud to be involved in this site because I think it's one of the best in certain areas. I mean, we don't have everything here. We obviously can't have animals, but that's just way beyond our capability to do. It's something we'd like to do, but right now but anyway, it's getting off on a tangent, but what we do, I think we do very well.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if there's nothing else between the three of you, we'd like to talk a little bit about the schoolhouse, because that's why we're kind of here. We wanted to... Oh, go ahead.
Just Heritage Holidays.
Oh, yes.
We have Heritage Holidays coming up December 14th. It is from 1 to 5 o'clock, and $3 for adults, $1 for students, and preschool is in free.
Mm-hmm.
It's a portrayal of our Christmas time. Christmas during our time period, 1840 to 1860, was not as grandiose as what we have today, but I think we do a fine job in the schoolhouse. As we explained, the schoolhouse, it is a little more prevalent in the schoolhouse because the schoolhouse is a little later date. But again, it's $3 for adults and $1 for students. There are other areas or other historic sites that have Christmas presentations as well that we're going to be visiting this year. Again, that's part of our research, I guess, as if you will, as we go to visit other sites too. And one of the sites that Jim Nichols and his wife are going to visit on December 7th is Norskadalen. It's a Norwegian site down in the Coon Valley area of Wisconsin. And my wife and I and Jim and Diane are going to be going to Old Road, Wisconsin this year to see what their Christmas holiday is like because it's a special time of the year, and I think it's going to be very interesting.
That should be, because they're so diverse.
Right.
With their,
Right.
you know, that I've been there before, but not on that weekend, but that would be really interesting, you know. I think the best thing that we do out here, not the best, one of the best things that we do out here with like Heritage Holidays is you come at 1 or sometime during the day, but it's slowly getting darker.
Yes. Oh.
And you get to that evening time. Is my favorite time to be here, and we've kind of planned this event so that, yeah, you're not going to come out in the pitch dark. I mean, we do it at Heritage, or for Halloween, but to tour on your own, if there's a little bit of light, but as it gets kind of darker, you get the candles lit in the windows, and the whole homey kind of thing really jumps in. And I think that 3 to 5 in the afternoon.
We have in the past went later, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't, I mean, it was
just didn't, after supper, they, got to be supper time, so everybody went home.
Yeah.
But, so that's where we came to 1 to 5. You still get to 3, 4, 5, the dusk time, and it just changes the whole atmosphere
But
of
I
the place.
think the term that I like to use is cozy.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
It gives you such a, when you're seeing the light in the window of the cabin or the bunkhouse or the house or something, and you go into the house and you've got some fresh baked goods in there that they're serving, and the candlelight, like you say, it just gives you a warm, cozy feeling.
I remember when we still were going into the night a little bit. It was that one year that we got quite a bit of snow, and I think we only got like 7 people came here. But to me, it was one of the most enjoyable times. I mean, it was a kind of a downer that there wasn't more people come here, but we realized they got like over 10 inches of snow in the morning, and so people had to dig out. But we got dug out, and when we got all straightened out, that night, when it was kind of a moonlit night, it was a clear night, and it just was it was one of those scenes where you see where the kind of like the snow kind of almost turned like a bluish color, with the moonlight, and like you say, the lights in the house, and it was just like one of the most magical times I've ever had out here.
Yeah. And it's chilly,
Oh, yeah,
dress
yeah.
warm, but the house is warm, the schoolhouse is warm. The cabin is warm if you stay close by the fireplace.
Yes.
Otherwise not. And even now we're going to have a little heat in the carpenter shop, I guess.
Yes,
things work out well.
We're working. We acquired a bigger stove in the bunkhouse, and took the smaller stove and put it in the 3-bay shed. And it's mainly because we wanted to demonstrate the old glue pot thing, where basically the carpenter Sawyer had an apprentice, and that was one of the biggest jobs of the apprentice, to come in and start the fire in the morning and get the glue pot going, and that's something that I think the young people can relate to, because it would have been a young person doing this, and that would have been their job at the time, and to show them how that goes. But yeah, we're trying to get everything heated out here more. We even have a stove purchased for the warehouse. So but the only thing that wouldn't have is not planned to have a furnace or a stove is the barn right now. I don't think we ever planned on putting.
There's a stove in the blacksmith shop too.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, there is the forge and a stove. So yeah, if we had enough animals, we could keep it warm. I don't know if anyone's ever been a farmer, but it was always kind of neat going to the barn in the wintertime, because that was the warmest place in any place. So, all right. So, hope you all come there. We do have hot chocolate, and there will be some food served in the house. And I don't know if you're planning on having anything.
I'm planning on it. I'm working on a recipe for some apple dumpling, sort of apple fritter sort of things. I've tried them once before with mixed success, but I think I learned something. Whether I
Yes.
make the same mistake again, I hope not.
And I believe there will be some snacks in the schoolhouse here. There'll be a tree, and it'll be decorated. So it'll be fun for all.
All right. Let's say your fritters will have a historic flavor.
The last one's dead. I'm hoping these don't.
So we're going to turn this over to Tom, because neither Larry or I were involved in the organization when the schoolhouse was acquired and moved and everything. So we'll let him bring you up on the history of that, and us also.
Thanks for telling me I was going to do that. I didn't know that till just now. Okay, back in the late 80s, early 90s maybe, John Dove Jr. Had this building. It's where the Ford garage is now, in that area of 8th Street, just to the west of 8th Street.
I have to stop you there because I have always been telling him that it was on the corner of Church and 13.
Yeah, but when we got it, it was down by where the Ford garage is.
Oh,
it's
really?
been moved twice.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
let me back up so I don't confuse the folks. It was from 1860 to 1960 on Church Avenue and Highway 13, or 8th Street, where the lawn ornament place is now. Once Consolidated Schools got in with the busing and everything, then John Dove Sr. bought it and moved it into where Kmart was, now the Ford garage is.
Okay.
And had it there as a workshop. I believe he did pinball and other type entertainment machines, and he worked on it in there. And then Junior had it, John Jr., and he wanted to build a better building. And according to what I was told, zoning things, you can only have so many buildings on a lot. So he had to get rid of this one, so he offered it to us, and we took it. We took the rafters down and laid them down, and then Peterson Home Movers, who've worked with us in the past, they lifted the Wakely house so we could redo the foundation. I mean, they worked with us several times. They moved it out here. We took the rafters down so we didn't have to redo all the wiring between coming out here. And we got it set kind of on foundation. We had a fella come in and lay the cement block foundation, and they dug the foundation, the basement. We got it set on there, and we finally got the roof up again, and we had a company put on a shingle roof, so it was done right. But we could never quite get the building square straight. I mean, so some of our volunteers who have relatives who were in the construction business, who were kind of not real busy at the time, came in and put a new floor system underneath here. And we took the sleepers, the old log sleepers, from here and put them over in the log cabin that we have now. So that we reused all that stuff. But finally we got this on a good foundation. And then a couple of years later we added on the modern restroom wing over here, and in the basement there's a kitchen and a storage area.
Oh, so that wasn't on the original plan?
It kind of was pretty close, but the original was to just have just the schoolhouse.
Okay.
And do like a pit toilet outhouse like you would have had at school.
Okay.
And before we got this done in here, then that's when that one came on. Kind of as we were finishing this, that sort of came on. That's why the doorway is over here. Inside the school, there's at least 3 different kinds of wainscoting on the wall, all from old schools that we acquired, and there was never enough of one kind to make, so we do one wall of one side and one wall of another. You paint them all the same, they look pretty much, and then you can kind of show the difference.
Oh, that's a good idea.
The flooring is maple flooring that was over 100 years old, and we put it back down in here, and that's another whole story which we don't even, oh my goodness.
It was a chore.
It was a chore, yeah. And we didn't have Monday work groups. Most of us were still employed at the time, but we would take Thursday afternoons. It was kind of our afternoon work group.
Okay.
And we'd come out here and we'd lay flooring and wainscoting, and finally we got it. There's a lot of time and effort into this building, and it's fun. It was fun.
And I was told that it wasn't supposed to be a schoolhouse, right?
Right.
That was the original thought.
The visitor center, Columbia School Visitor Center. And what we were going to do was do a desk like we have behind us, a teacher's desk, and maybe 2 or 3 other desks to kind of give the feel of the front half of the room, kind of, or third, would be a school, and then the rest would be where you would come, pay your $3 or whatever to tour or whatever. But we had one in particular, one lady who was a volunteer who had started her teaching career as a one-room school teacher. And she just really, really, really wanted to do this. And before you knew it, it was like she had the place decorated and pretty well squared away. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait a minute, where'd our visitor center go? But that's all right. It's fine. It's great. And the kids love it. They come out and it's for the school days, they like it. Or even our open days. They do a thing where they do lessons and they'll go over stuff. But it's been a really fun part of our thing. It doesn't quite fit in the time period for the other side, but that's why it's over here. And the hardest thing we have to do is get people to remember to come up here.
Yes, because it is a different section.
It's a different section. It's a little bit out of the way. And but once they get here, we can do things in here, like you say, a Christmas tree, or because of electric lights, we do, was it 1925, I think?
Yes, 1920, 25, yes.
We can do things in here that are not quite as primitive as we have to do on the other side before 1860.
Yes.
But it's been a real fun
And having
project.
these are the only modern facilities, public bathrooms that we have on site. We are totally historic across the creek in the 1840s, 1860s, because that's all we have is a porta potty. Not a porta potty. I'm thinking but we have an outhouse. I was getting ahead of myself because I just wanted people not to be too concerned. We do have a number of porta potties when we have our major event, the Pioneer Fest. So you will have the temporary facilities on the big events, but this is the only modern facilities we have on site all year round. And what's nice about this building is it is the only permanently heated one in our site. So
That's why we're here today.
yeah, it's exactly.
Not somewhere else.
But I think we've had a lot of people come that actually went to this school. You know, they come and so they brought back a lot of memories.
They had a reunion
I
here.
went to a.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Columbia School reunion one time.
I went to two different one-room schoolhouses, and it brings back a lot of memories for me. There's a lot of good stories and I think it's one of the personal view.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the worst things we did is get rid of our one-room schoolhouses for grade schools and things like that. It was a
The
wonderful
neighborhood
experience.
school is
Yeah.
important, I think,
Yeah.
too. Whether it's in town or in the country, yeah.
Right, yeah. But
I do want to point out the tin ceiling.
I was going to say that you've shared some stories on
Yes.
how much a challenge that was.
Oh, Lord. Remember I said that we had a hard time getting this building square. We never quite made it. It's not quite right. It's close. I mean, it's been moved twice, so it's got a lot of miles on it, and it's an old building. But there was some tin ceiling up there, and we were able to go, I think it was a place in St. Louis that does pressed tin ceiling reproduction stuff.
Oh, that's new to me because I thought you had all the parts and pieces. I didn't know you had to go back and get
We
them.
had to buy some.
Okay.
And those are, I think, 2 by 4 foot pieces, if I'm not mistaken. And we really didn't know how to do this. We started kind of in the middle, and I think that was proper. But it
Looks good.
does, but there was weeks on scaffolding, at evenings
figure out,
and
yeah.
afternoons. Finally, we just cut it to fit. You were half an inch off. These panels, there's nail holes, and they overlap. So you go through 2 sheets
Okay.
to hold them together. And that's fine in the middle. When you get over to the edge, if
don't
you're
have
an
any.
eighth of an inch or a half an inch off, life gets really tough. But we were able to trim it up enough and make it fit in. And I have a feeling that even in the original days when they were doing it, their buildings might not have been exactly square either.
Oh,
And
definitely.
I think they did the same. At least that's what we told ourselves. But it's the honest to goodness same pattern ceiling that was in here when we got it. And I'm sure from the looks of it, that was the original.
Yeah. Don't feel too bad, because even on modern buildings, you know, you might start out with a square base, but by the time you get 1-2 stories up, things shift, you know. And things,
Yeah.
you know, even though you look like, you know, you plumb the walls as much as you can, it's easy to get off enough to throw the square of the ceiling off, because ask anyone that installs suspended ceiling and they'll tell you, you know, it doesn't work out.
Yeah, and our chalkboard, we've got several different pieces of it. That came out of the old Alexander High School in Coosa.
Oh,
The chalkboard that was here was either broken or it wasn't here anymore when we got it. And we made a contact with the Coosa School Board, and that was when they still owned that building, and they said, well, you know, if you can find some pieces in there, go get them. And we did. So we have, honest to goodness, real historic chalkboard in here.
yeah. And even the ladies produced, you know, in our day and age, we have the Xerox copiers and our copiers in our own home, and they even demonstrate how they made copies. And I think this is even earlier than the 1920s. This goes back even farther, where they would make the copies of the paper and ink them and then press them in and make, you know, a number of copies until you had to re-ink and things like that. And of course, if you ever remember these old, and what do they call this, a triscope or stereoscope, where you have the old pictures, and it's really quite clear. If you haven't, some people probably remember them when you were young, but we have some examples and quite a few pictures.
To the Viewmaster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we display, and how many people remember the old goiter pills and things like that?
Oh, Lord.
We get into things, and and we have some of the historic books, and we have a working Victrola. If you want to demonstrate that.
If you want.
Yeah. And I don't know how many people have heard of Victrola lately, but we have a working one here. You give it a little crank. You've got to be careful not to crank it too much. And this was, I believe this one is about dancing.
Gotta crank it up some more.
See, it's not, now we have it going good, but as you listen to it, it'll kind of wear down. And then you have to, you can adjust the speed of it. See here, so you, tell me when it hears, that's about right, right?
I think so.
Yeah. And we have been donated quite a few records, you know. I was thinking possibly at the Winterfest this year, because Bernard Schultz just donated us a smaller Victrola,
Okay.
a tabletop model, and we could start to use some of these records at the Winterfest this
That
year.
might be kind of fun. Yeah.
Just teaching a dance. So
Yeah,
we have all kinds of neat things out
There we
here.
go.
So.
Yeah, that's
So you can kind of get yourself back in history quite a lot. Now we have changed things in the schoolhouse a little bit, because we used to have more. We used to, in our, like, how would you say, an entryway.
yeah.
We used to have what would be a store for a while.
Gift shop, yeah.
A gift shop, and then but we still have a video in there. The other side we've turned into, you know, where you have the lunch pails and coat racks and things like that, where the where the students of the one-room schoolhouse would have stored everything. So it's, we're constantly improving things and getting it straightened out. And in that box over there is a traveling library, and so the students in the one-room schoolhouse could check out books. So even back then we had access to a library.
Every couple of weeks, they would deliver a new set of books to the school, and then the Wood County Library would pass them around between all the schools.
There's a lot of history to one-room schoolhouses and in the country and in small communities and things like that. Is the teacher was typically had to be a single person. It typically was a single lady, because they would live with one of the people in the community and things like that. And so they were given their board and keep, plus their wages and stuff, but they typically had to be a single lady. One of the big fundraisers that the school had were social baskets, or basket socials, I should say, where you would have it's a cute story that I like telling. You would, they would auction these baskets off, and typically one of the highest going back, they would auction that basket off that was prepared by one of the ladies of the community. And then you got to eat lunch with that lady that prepared that basket. And typically in the one room, in the smaller communities, the highest bid on a basket was basket prepared by the school teacher, because she was a single lady. And so some of the schools actually had to put a restrainer on how much you could bid on the school marm's basket.
Yeah.
But it was a good fundraiser for it.
My mother-in-law taught in a one-room school for several years, and when she was very elderly, and she got to be very, very elderly, we would go to take a ride in the country and go out by Altdorf, Wisconsin, and she'd have to point out the school still stands. It's not been a school for many, many, many years. But she would show us the school, and then where she lived across the road with the family, and tell stories about that. And I mean, this was 60, 70 years before, when she had been out there. And a lot of those one-room school teachers, that was the biggest pride of their, I mean, sure, they became housewives and they became business people later on or whatever, but that was a big thing in their lives, is that I taught in one-room school.
I know my grandmother Matthews. She was a Fogarty, before she got married, and she was a teacher. And when I was young, I didn't really understand too much about one-room schoolhouses, but it was a big deal in our family that Grandma Matthews was a school teacher. So yeah, it was very well respected. But anyways, getting back to Larry's point, with the whole buying the basket, one of the things with the school teacher is she couldn't have any contact with any single, she couldn't be in the same room alone with any man in the community. So this whole basket thing was probably the only time if someone was wanting to get to know the school marm, that was probably one of the few opportunities that they would have all year to really be with them.
And they were probably couldn't go off on their own. They probably had to be with somebody else.
Yeah.
But
at least they would have some way to, because otherwise it was probably almost impossible to really connect with the teacher, other than possibly at church services or something like that. But I'm not even sure how much restriction that was.
Yeah, they were pretty strict about that stuff. And in many years before, long before we portray here, the school teachers were men, single men. Because a lot of the women, girls, while they attended school for a while, it was pretty rudimentary. And then the men would go on for education, and then come back and teach school. We were talking about Ichabod Crane before. That's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, he was a teacher.
Yeah. So it's that sort of thing. But a lot of times, girls who got through the 8th grade and did well in school would then go to what became later the Wood County or whatever county normal school for a year or two, and then go out to teach on your own. That's what happened with my mother-in-law.
Yeah, it is a little different concept when you think that the teacher in the one room schoolhouse might only be 16 years old, right? You know, so you have to, you know, there's so many things that you don't think of until you come out here and you know, like, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
You know, so.
One other thing that we do have out here, along with the schoolhouse and right in front of the schoolhouse, is our gardens put on by the master gardeners.
Oh, yeah.
And they do a wonderful job out here. We have the gardens by the schoolhouse here. We have a quilt garden out here, and we have a lot of other plants that have
Butterfly garden over here, yeah.
butterfly garden. They also do our main gardening over by the Wakely home over there, which this year they raised some flax and it was a
Tobacco.
learning experience, and tobacco, and of course all the edibles, you know, the tomatoes and the chilies and things like that. But the master gardeners too do a wonderful job out here.
Yeah.
So you get a 2-for-1 when
Yeah.
you come here.
Another interesting thing they grew out to here is a paprika pepper, and it's a pepper type vegetable that you can make paprika out of, which, you know, and a lot of it is heritage, and a couple years ago they do broom corn. There was also this year they grew like a red popcorn. Just really some neat vegetables out here. So that's another aspect. Like good you brought that up. If you really like gardening and flowers, it's a great spot to be here too.
And also off of the schoolhouse on this end, we don't promote this end enough, I don't think, but on this end is where we have our main walking trail just outside the schoolhouse, and that goes down along the river. It's a beautiful walking trail down there that the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts have been working on. I think Tom and Mike had done a presentation on that earlier.
We did, yeah.
You know, but again, that's all on this side of the river.
And now the Girl Scouts have got their Birds of Wakely signs up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are cool.
Yes, they really
And
did well on those.
I was talking to a friend of mine in Stevens Point who works with Audubon, and something was said about me volunteering out here. He asked me about that, how it went. He'd heard about it in Point at their meeting or whatever, and I invited him to come. I said, those laminated bird identification things, they're just really cool, and they're all over around here now.
We have 16, I believe.
Yeah, that's just really neat.
And that was funded by a grant from the Audubon Society, and the Girl Scouts used that as I believe their silver project, and they researched the birds, and it says birds of Wakely, but it's mainly birds of central Wisconsin.
Central Wisconsin, yeah.
And they designed the bird signs and what goes on each ones, and then they were printed, and then they came and actually dug the holes and installed the signs in place, and so it was really a great
project.
So when we talked earlier about volunteering out here, if you have something of interest, we have probably one of the broadest concepts of interest, you know, from gardening to bird watching to historic Point Basse, and you know, so you're only limited by your imagination.
Yes,
You know.
and we got it, and that comes into a really great gift that we have just received from Domtar. We just were gifted 12.9 acres on the north part of our property here, which means that we are pretty much safe in that we can keep our site rustic. We don't have to worry too much anymore about someone building on that side of the Wakely Road and taking away from the secluded nature and basically the possibility that you can actually think you're back in time.
Yeah.
Because you can be at our site and there's nothing around here. I mean, it's all wild around. You can really get yourself into the feel that you're back in time.
So many of the places that we go to are, especially the ones like you were talking about, Cook County, they're part of a park, but if they're at the edge of the park, there's whole
There's houses right there.
town right there,
Yes.
where we don't have that. Both sides are kind of buffered by woods, and it really helps.
Yes, we've had many people remark that this is really quite an unusual site because of that. That it's just a very rustic site, and on the river too. There's not that many directly on the river either. So it's
Yeah, over the years, Great Northern Nakusa gave us the original 2 pieces of property, and now Domtar, which owns what was Great Northern Nakusa, they've been really, over the years, have been just
Yes.
wonderful and good to work with. Craig Tim has been working with us. He's a local person that's been this PR guy for the mills in Nakusa for a long time, and they have really, really stepped up, and
yes.
they never give us, we presented what we thought about and give and take, and then all of a sudden one day we knew that they were, working on it. All of a sudden one day the deed showed up in the mail.
Yeah.
Mike called me. He couldn't have been touching the floor. He had to have been floating.
Well, he worked a long time.
Oh,
years.
he did. And he called me up and said, I got the deed today. It's in the mail. And it's like, wow, man, he was floating. I think other than the birth of his 2 grandchildren, that's the best thing that's happened to him in a long time.
Yeah.
And that's one of our main goals is to preserve this for long-term future. We do not ever want this to turn into a development site or something.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is our efforts from here forward is to.
Yeah, we are working on a long-range plan to permanently conserve this as a nature site, and we should have that. That's Mike's next long.
Yeah. That's his next project.
But
Yeah.
all of our land has been donated either by Great Northern and Domtar now. But another great part of our land was what we call the prairie. If you ever were out here, where we have the plantation, that was bought with money donated by Carl Johnson. And so we've been very fortunate that all of our land has been donated to us.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the part by the subdivision where that was part
That's
of.
all part of that one
That was original.
Yeah. No.
That was part of.
The first bunch was just on the west side of the creek.
Oh, okay.
Where we are now with the parking lots and that up to where the roadway is, that was the second group, and that went over as far as the subdivision.
Oh, so that was from Great Northern also?
Yes.
Okay.
That was 2 different ones, and they weren't not terribly far apart.
Okay.
85, and then sometime, I think, late 80s, the second part. And then we were here until 2010, when Carl and Barb gave us the money to purchase that next chunk, and as their legacy. And I mean, jeepers, how can you know?
Yes, we're just just shy of 50 acres right now. I think we're at like 48.7 or something like that, but, approximately. But it's getting to be a nice size site. We can do just about everything except animals. We'd need a lot more volunteers, a lot more income to take care of animals and.
We do have people bring animals out here
Yes.
for our events and things like
Right.
that, but as far as raising animals are here or something, it's just prohibitive.
But even the big state sites like
Right.
Old World and Heritage Hills, in fact, I don't know if Heritage Hills has animals regularly or not, but even at Old World, they're very darn few. They've got their working oxen, they've got a couple of cows and some sheep and things, but they don't really, raise animals the way like Vulcaning does or some of the other ones. John at Vulcaning, he was always proud of the fact that he was the second largest dairy farmer in Cook County. He had 2 cows. The largest had 3.
Also, too, we are still working on our visitor center, so if anyone has any ideas about that. And with that, we'll close. And thank you, Tom, and thank you, Larry. And we wish everyone happy holidays. I know that could be contentious, but that includes Thanksgiving and Christmas and
New Year's.
New Year's, you know, so that's why I say happy holidays. So, but Merry Christmas too. So, okay, thank you very much.